Hey, Misha.
Oh, wait, that's me. Shit.
Would you believe the impossible just happened?
Where quarantine is over?
No.
Please tell me quarantine is over. Okay. Tell me quarantine is over, and then tell me the truth.
Okay, quarantine's over, but that's a lie. The truth is, something else has happened. Justice League, your favorite movie and mine, is getting a Snyder Cut.
I love that Justice League movie like I love Ebola.
No, but for real, bro, for real. So who knew we were getting a re-release of the infamous the controversial, the polarizing Justice League movie. We're getting a Snyder Cut. And I think today is a great time to start talking about all the different ways movies get sliced and diced into director's cuts, alternative cuts, and extended cuts.
This is not going to end well. Okay, fine. Here we are. We're now officially living in a world where the Snyder Cut has been acknowledged by the powers that be to the point that they're going to release it on HBO Max next year. Whether it's going to be in the form of an extended film or an episodic presentation, we don't know.
Wow, I hadn't even considered that.
No, they just said that it's coming. They didn't say what form it would take. Remember, Snyder's been saying all along his original cut was like 4 hours long. So if they do that whole thing, they could easily chop it up into 2 or 3 parts.
Yeah. Well, honestly, I'm in disbelief that this is going to happen because maybe I'm talking on my ass here, but I thought the Snyder Cut didn't exist. I'm not saying that Zack never had a vision of his own or anything like that, but
right.
the idea of the hashtag movement released the Snyder Cut was the idea that there existed an actual film that was complete, effects complete. The whole shape of the film was finished before Snyder was allegedly kicked out of the project or taken off the project.
Well,
and that interloper Joss Whedon came over to ruin his vision.
Look, for me, okay. I think my interpretation of a cut in this case was even if the effects weren't done, that basically the story existed in some form or other. There was a rough edit already, something that you could judge.
An assembly cut or something, or a work print edition. One of those fancy words, right?
Right. But, it didn't necessarily have to be polished. But the the consensus or the company line has always been that he still had a chunk of stuff that he would have to shoot to make it watchable. But now, in a time when nobody is allowed to shoot anywhere, they're saying, we got everything we need. We can put it together. We can finish it and we can show it to you. Sometime
we have the money. We have the technology.
We can rebuild it.
Yeah, wow. I just made a reference to a TV show that's before my time.
I don't know. You're like 44. What are you talking about? Okay. The thing about this, releasing a film after the fact in a form that was intended by its original creator after he'd already been replaced by somebody else to do the theatrical release, this is not something that's unprecedented.
That's right.
The same thing happened to Richard Donner when he was doing Superman the movie. I don't know. I know you're 44, but I'm going to refresh your memory anyway, because you were like a baby, I guess. Basically, Richard Donner was hired to do 2 Superman movies back to back because it was going to be cheaper than shooting 2 separate movies, right? So you shoot them all at the same time, put out 2 movies, you save on the production. Basically what they did to like the Lord of the Rings and nothing else comes to mind right now because it's midnight, guys. Give me a break. So Richard Donner was hired to do 2 Superman movies and he shot them for like a year and a half. But as the production went on, as delays happened, he was told at some point, stop shooting bits of 2, just put all your energy into 1. And then we'll worry about 2 after 1 comes out. So that's what they did. They shifted gears. They finished 1. It was a big hit. Christopher Reeve, to this day, remains Superman in many people's minds. But what happened was, because the producers, a couple of French guys, decided they didn't want to work with this opinionated American director anymore, they fired him. They basically fired him and hired the director of Help to take over what was left of
I don't even know what that movie is.
That's the Beatles. How dare you?
Oh, okay.
So, because they wanted their interpretation of comics was more of a slapstick approach. So, if you watch Superman 2, the theatrical cut, it is absolutely clear that they got their way. It's slapstick in all the wrong ways.
I get what you mean, because this is like 1979, 1982. It's like less than 2 decades from the camp of Batman, and the silliness of the Wonder Twins, wherein superheroes still hadn't been mythologized as just sort of like modern adult mythology or whatever.
Right. But as campy as the original Superman movie was in 79 or 78, 79, as campy as that movie was with Gene Hackman as Lex Luthor and all that, something that Richard Donner insisted on from the very beginning was verisimilitude, because he said, we're creating the equivalent of an American myth. We have to take it seriously because it's a guy in blue underwear with a cape flying around. It's the most ridiculous thing ever. But if we find the right guy and if we treat it with respect, it can be something that people will take seriously. And that's exactly what they did. That's why if you watch that movie, the first 2 acts spend all of their effort grounding it in some kind of reality. Krypton, they got Marlon Brando to be Jor-El. He plays it absolutely straight. They shoot the Smallville scenes like a John Ford movie. It's some of the most beautiful all-American. It looks like a Norman Rockwell painting, basically. all the Smallville sequences, because they wanted to ground it before they finally bring them to Smallville, and everything just explodes in an explosion of pop, of color, of zaniness, of comic book action. But by that time, you're already invested. None of that is in part 2. Part 2 is just slapstick. It's just silliness. And it only survives based on the goodwill you have from the first one.
Yikes. Yeah. It's funny, this example, too, because it's definitely within the real realm of like DC. It's, it's like, it's the same like characters. It's the same genre. The fact that, a company is struggling to figure out how to shape this like sort of very unique form of pop art into the confines of cinema. It's the same struggle.
So the thing that really stuck out about Superman 2 was for years and years, people wanted to were trying to pressure Warner Brothers into releasing the Donner Cut. And they finally got their wish when Warner Brothers put out this massive DVD box set to celebrate the release of Superman Returns. They packed it in with every Superman movie up to that point, including a newly assembled Richard Donner cut of Superman 2. But even Richard Donner had maintained that he'd never actually finished his cut. Because again, he'd been forced to put all his energy into finishing part 1. So he didn't want to even have anything to do with the Donner cut. It was somebody else. It was one of the DVD producers who took the job. He assembled it based on Donner's notes from the 70s, basically, and from the shooting script.
No, this kind of reminds me of how some novelists will have unfinished manuscripts, and then people will just like assemble a quote unquote novel out of it to sort of like restore it, or at least bring it out to the public. And it also points to a trend that you and I both know about, these alternative cuts of movies, where studios will put out cuts that are marketed as more authentic, if not flat out calling it director's cut, flat out calling it like, the authentic version, but actually don't have much in the way of input from the person who originally helmed the movie. I think good examples of those would be the director's cut for Alien, which was marketed as like, it's based on Ridley Scott's original vision or original cut, and really would later say like, I made those cuts for a reason. Like, yes, I filmed that really long movie, and then when it became a theatrical cut, those cuts weren't like executive notes. That was me being all like, yeah, we got to fit this in a reasonable time frame.
But I think for the 30th anniversary that he finally did his own version of that, right?
Yeah, he did. But the first release, like I remember, that was infamous.
That's right. That's right. They added footage that he'd taken out. They wanted to pad it either for home video or for a TV broadcast or something, because the longer the film would be, the more ads you can sell.
Yeah, that's right.
And that used to be a thing. But the thing with the Richard Donner cut, in the end, when he heard about what the DVD producer was trying to accomplish, he actually gave his blessing. And when you watch it, it's a nice little time capsule of what could have been. But you realize also that, it was never going to be as good as it was in people's heads for 20 years. And that's what I'm worried about. I mean, that's what I'm thinking could very well happen to Justice League moving forward. Because what if it doesn't redeem Snyder? What if it doesn't redeem Ben Affleck as Batman?
Yeah.
What if it doesn't do any of those things? Then what will this movement have been about?
I mean, in the long term, I kind of take an apathetic view about it. Not in the sense that I don't care for the Justice League movie, but in the sense that there is no...
No, it's okay. I don't care enough for both of us.
Yeah. There's no... Like, the reaction to the Snyder Cut in the future, I think, is just going to be the reaction that it's going to get. Like it's prejudged. Like, there are so many diehard stands for the DC Extended Universe writ under Snyder and Nolan and all that stuff, who are all like, well, which is these movies are actually all good. They're very different from Marvel, but there's a Marvel conspiracy out there that's, ruining their critical reception. Like, if the Snyder Cut comes out, they'll just be like, they'll still stand for that movie. You know what I mean? They'll still stand for it the same way they even stand for the theatrical cut.
I can respect that kind of passion, honestly. I just want to know whether or not the enthusiasm could possibly be misplaced. Because look at it this way. I mean, over the years, there have been a lot of alternate cuts of movies. Not to this extent, maybe. But sometimes whenever these alternate cuts come out, they don't necessarily add much. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
I mean, they can add footage, or they can change a punchline, or change a camera angle, but a lot of them didn't really enhance the overall experience.
Yeah,
in very rare cases they did.
Trivial sometimes.
Yeah, like Deadpool 2. There's an extended cut on the home video release, which apparently a lot of people have been downloading, but they can't tell the difference because some of them are just seeing it for the first time, and pirates don't necessarily label their files on what cut they're posting, and they're like, it's not as good as I thought it would be. What they don't realize is they were actually watching the extended cut, which changed maybe about 40-50% of all the punchlines with alternate takes. So it really does not land the same way as it did in the theater. Like, entire jokes are all different now.
Yeah.
So these people are left wondering, what the hell was the fuss about,
Yeah.
I mean, assuming you like Deadpool in the first place.
Yeah. I think there are some cuts that don't improve the movie necessarily. Like, off the top of my head, I can't really recall too many. But there are also cuts that actively make the film worse. I think one good example of that would be the movie Bad Santa, which, stay with me here. This is going to be an extremely subjective take. But Bad Santa, the Billy Bob Thornton movie, where he plays sort of like a grumpy, miserable, unlikable mall Santa. In the original movie, there's a lot more comedy. There's a lot more. It has a lighter tone, and it opens with a monologue that sort of gives you a window into the Bad Santa character. And the director's cut version of it sort of flips that and makes the movie actively darker and even removes the monologue. And so what happens is, instead of having a comedy with dark notes, you end up getting this mean-spirited work that sometimes tries to crack a few cheap laughs.
I get you. I think that a big part of where the ecstatic reaction to this Justice League release is coming from is this notion that the addition of alternate or unearthed or hidden or previously unreleased footage automatically would make something better than what the mean old studio showed you 2 years ago.
Yeah, like you add stuff in the hopes of making it betterer, but adding doesn't necessarily do that. It takes, you can't polish a turd. Like, for example, actually a great example would be, I think, the Daredevil movie. I think Daredevil, the 2003 movie starring our man Batman, Ben Affleck as Daredevil.
Right.
Which, by the way, just for a little aside, after he donned that Daredevil outfit and received middling, praise for it or criticism, he was like, I'm never going to play a superhero again. That's me, Ben Affleck. Never going to play a superhero again. And he
shows what he knows.
Anyway, but Daredevil, the movie is as 2003 as you can get. There's a tacky romance in it. There's like cheesy over the top bad guys, and the director's cut that was released later sort of adds 30 minutes, changes the arc of the movie so that there's less romance and more like quote unquote detective work, connecting Wilson Fisk to the identity of the Kingpin. And I think the movie is improved, but it doesn't necessarily make it like worth watching all over again. You know what I mean?
Yeah, I think I do.
3-point landing!
Another example that I can think of that'll clearly show my age, I think, would be Highlander 2.
Whew, here we go.
That is a legendarily awful film. Okay, that is a god-awful sequel to a classic cult movie.
You gotta educate me on this because I don't know anything about Highlander, the mythos, Highlander fandom, and the Highlander films. In fact, I was under the impression that Highlander 2 was a wildly worshipped work. But you're telling me that the theatrical cut of this movie is derided?
Do you not see my face? I don't even know if you're being sarcastic at this point.
I'm 100% serious, bro.
No! Okay, fine. Okay, listen to this. This is a pitch that the writer, I think his name was Gregory Wyden or whatever, he made this, I think he was still in film school.
I'm looking forward to widening my film knowledge.
Very nice. God damn it. He wrote a treatment for an immortal warrior, an immortal Scotsman, right? Who is part of a race of immortals who live their lives through the centuries and can only be killed by chopping off the other dude's head. Okay? So their goal is the series tagline. There can be only one. Because the logic goes that if you chop off your enemy's head, you absorb all of his knowledge, all of his power, all of his skills. So if they all end up killing each other till there's only one left, he becomes like the ultimate.
I feel like this is an apt metaphor for today's late stage capitalism, but go on.
With a Queen soundtrack. But anyways, the film was ultimately directed by Russell Mulcahy, who at that time was a known music video director. And he brought a lot of style into it, especially with the way that flashbacks were presented, highlighting the different stages of the Highlander's life throughout the centuries. The guy they got to play the lead, the titular Highlander, was Christopher Lambert, a Frenchman who barely spoke English. His only big role up to that point to English-speaking audiences was as Tarzan, which didn't require much dialogue, to be fair. So you had this Frenchman pretending to be a Scottish Highland warrior who grows up through the centuries, and at some point his mentor is Sean Connery, who teaches him in the ways of the immortals. And Sean Connery is, at this point, a 2,000-year-old Spanish noble who was actually born an Egyptian, and he gets decapitated by Clancy Brown.
I love how people, like whitewashing is a real issue in Hollywood. And I just want to say Highlander like really, really took it to the extreme.
But you know what? To be fair, I will watch Clancy Brown and Sean Connery in pretty much anything.
That's true. That is true. I'll even watch them in Carnival.
Hey, Carnival wasn't bad. I just wish they ended it.
Yeah, me too. Anyway,
Clancy Brown. Clancy Brown, I love him. He's my favorite Lex Luthor. He was Lex Luthor on Superman the Animated Series, Justice League Unlimited, and he was a guard in the Shawshank Redemption, and now he delights millions of kids around the world as Mr. Krabs.
I wish Clancy Brown, I think he's too old for this now, but I wish he actually played Lex Luthor physically, because he's like 7'25" or something and would actually be able to stand next to Superman.
Oh wait, he played that giant demon at the beginning of Thor Ragnarok. You know when Thor was hanging on that chain? He was that demon, that fire demon thing.
Yeah, he's cool. Anyways, I think we just went off the rails there for a moment, but
I'm sorry.
That's what happens when
fine.
you start talking about Clancy Brown.
So the film continues in 1986, the modern day. There's only a handful of immortals left, and one of them is Clancy Brown, and the other one is the Highlander, Connor McLeod, played by Christopher Lambert. And of course, the film ends with an epic sword fight between the two of them. And it is great. It's awesome B-movie fun with a killer Queen soundtrack that they signed on because the music video director who directed the film was a friend of theirs who'd done a couple of their videos. So it was an easy sell. And that's why they wrote Princes of the Universe. It's a Kind of Magic. Who Wants to Live Forever. They did like 5 songs for this thing because they just really love the idea, the concept, and the idea of a dude with a sword killing bad guys through the centuries is kind of awesome. And it led to a 6-season TV series and, unfortunately, 4 sequels. Unfortunately. Because the first sequel took away everything that was cool about the first one. They were not a mysterious race of immortals traveling silently through the centuries, doing battle with each other away from mortal eyes. No, the second movie established that Sean Connery and Christopher Lambert were aliens.
What? I knew it. I was thinking it's not aliens. It's not aliens. It's fucking aliens.
Wait, it's not. I'm not even done.
I know.
They're aliens. They're aliens from the planet Zeist. That's Zeist, kids. Zeist. They're aliens from the planet Zeist who tried to lead an uprising against the evil warlord Katana, played by Michael Ironside.
I'm sorry, you guys can't hear me, but I'm doing the blinking man gif.
Wait, so they lost the fight. They rebelled against the warlord, and their punishment was they gotta be sent through a transdimensional portal to Earth. Where they have to live out their lives as amnesiac immortals in a battle to be the last one.
So, what's the director's cut version of this? Is it better or worse? Because I'm not sure.
Okay, back to what you were saying earlier about polishing a turd. They've tried so many times. Every time it comes out on a DVD and then the Blu-ray. Oh wait. Oh, I forgot the worst part. I forgot it. It starts in like 21st century, okay? The Highlander is now an old man because after defeating all his enemies, apparently he became mortal.
So he's the reverse. He's the reverse one. You know how Jet Li was supposed to kill everybody and then like become more powerful? He killed everybody and became mortal.
Yes, exactly. But he still retains all the knowledge and skills of all the dudes he whacked, including the ones that those dudes whacked, right? So
wow,
the ozone layer is gone.
I'm never watching these movies anymore. I'm never.
No, you have to watch. No, you have to watch this.
No.
The ozone layer is gone. Okay, and the only one who can save them is Connor McLeod, the Highlander, because he has all this technical know-how in his head, the accumulated knowledge of the centuries, and he builds basically a force field.
Oh, okay.
No, he builds a force field, okay? He builds a force field that colors the world red, but it keeps them safe. He puts a force field where the ozone layer used to be.
So wretched. It sounds so awful.
And everybody hates him for that. He saved their lives on the one hand, but on the other hand, he turned the entire planet into a hot box. So everyone's sticky and miserable, but they're alive. And then they find a reason to bring Sean Connery back for no other reason than that people loved him from the first movie. And then he dies like 10 minutes later anyway. So it's really, really bad. Now, the DVD and the Blu-ray, they try and fix some stuff. They erased all the references to the alien planet. They changed the color of the force field around the planet from red to blue, as if that made a difference. They changed some of the editing of the fight scenes. It didn't make it a better movie. It made it a different movie, a slightly different movie, but it didn't make it a better one.
Yeah. And I get what you're saying. Like they made all these changes, but these changes, because I'm looking it up right now, these changes just seem like they're like, do you want vanilla or do you want chocolate ice cream? Do you want red skies or blue skies? Do you want, the sword to go swoosh or do you want to go swash?
No, you're right. It was like, do you want chocolate or vanilla? But it's still 2 girls, 1 cup. It doesn't help anything.
Wow, that's a really great metaphor.
Because it really was.
Your 2 girls, 1 cup metaphor is so dated. I think people are going to have to Google that one. Everybody Google 2 girls, 1 cup.
Let's not never do that. Never, nobody Google that, please.
Well, you had booked a 13-year-old reference, my boy.
Oh, God. And then the third movie just pretends the second movie didn't happen. And then the fourth movie is based on a TV show, which pretends the second and third movies didn't happen. And then the fifth movie just made you want to kill yourself. So,
I already want to kill myself.
So, what has it got to do with anything? The fact is, home video made it possible for studios to milk more money out of the fans by promising something they'd never seen before, whether it was through extended sequences, alternate sequences, or even just deleted scenes that were brought in to either pad the movie or to just, fill up a separate disc of supplementary material.
Oh man, you know who else is guilty of that?
Who?
Steven Spielberg.
Talk to me.
Steven's like, no, because you said like they're digging extra footage and padding it out and resuscitating this stuff, not necessarily for so-called artistic reasons, but just so they can sell you the home video all over again.
What did they do with Spielberg? I don't recall.
He redid Close Encounters of the Third Kind twice, and he redid.
But that was him. That wasn't just that was him.
Oh yeah, but
he was involved.
By his own admission, there were some executive requests.
Is this like those stupid walkie-talkies that they took out? They took out the guns of the cops.
Okay. Let me
were chasing E.T. and his friends.
When Close Encounters of the Third Kind, what happened was there's a scene at the end, right, where he meets the aliens, he goes to the ship, and in the original cut of the movie, they try to make it very ambiguous. You don't see the aliens and everything like that. But in the the re-release, in the re-release to cinemas, they show lots of the space in the ship interior, a massive pan up to what was considered state-of-the-art, CGI graphics of what the ship architecture looked like. And Spielberg later said he regretted putting that in because, as is obvious, it robbed the mystery of the aliens. And he also said that was only put there because the executive said, look, we're not re-releasing Close Encounters of the Third Kind unless you give us something to market with. And he was like, all right, I'll give you some fucking alien visuals because that will look good in the trailer.
Okay. The reason that I think that's okay, it's not okay. It's horrible,
before I go on,
go ahead.
it's my problem with it isn't it's just one thing, right? But for me, he's a repeat offender. That's the thing, fool me once, listen, whatever.
Bear with me.
All right.
The only thing that makes that somewhat bearable is that when the home video of this extended version actually was released, it also came with a version of the original one. So you could go back and forth.
Something George Lucas denies us.
Oh, absolutely. We could. That's its own episode. Let's save that for another time. But seriously, I like the idea that you can watch what you saw in the theater or what you saw on TV. And if they want to change something later on, fine. You can release that, but don't take away my choice. Don't make it something that I just have to go along with and pretend that this is what I was watching the whole time. And all the more, don't replace what I was watching this whole time and possibly fell in love with and tell me that I gotta get used to the new version. That's the only way I'm gonna have it. That's exactly what happened with Star Wars. That is what Disney what Disney Plus is now doing, apparently. They're making alterations to their catalog films to make them family friendly.
Yeah, you know what? I wanna stop right there and say, you know what? Like you said, I think this whole Star Wars stuff, that's a whole episode of its own.
Yeah.
So that's a definite stay tuned for this show. Like we're gonna day we're gonna tackle Star Wars. We're gonna talk about the special editions. And we're even gonna talk about the despecialized edition and all of that jazz.
Oh,
and
yes.
I look forward to that episode. But if we did that in this episode, this would be 4 hours long, and would require, an extended cut.
That will change like 2 years later and not tell you about it.
3-point landing.
Seriously. Okay, fine. Let's go back to the topic at hand. Are there any extended, special, or director's editions that actually made the film better?
Okay, for my money, my vote would be Almost Famous. Cameron Crowe film starring Kate Hudson and Patrick Fugit. That is a sort of loosely biographical tale of his time as a rock and roll writer back in the early 70s. And that movie...
I love that film.
Yeah.
I love that film so much.
Yeah, great soundtrack, am I right?
Yeah.
The movie, it's also one of my favorite movies. This movie did well commercially and critically. So, there's no need to, there's no compulsion to be all like, well, people didn't understand my work and executives meddled it, so I'm going to rectify it. No, none of that shit. What happened was when they released it on home video, on DVD, they supplied, the special editions came with what is called the Untitled Cut. It's called Untitled, I think, because it's some kind of music reference that I can't remember offhand right now. But this cut sort of like fleshes out a lot of scenes. It sort of gives you more detail in every single aspect of the movie. And I think I like it a lot because the changes that are made to the movie are evenly distributed. So it makes it feel imperceptible from a pacing perspective instead of other movies that change by totally revising the third act or totally revising the first act kind of thing. In fact, it's come to a point where I've seen the Untitled Cut so often that I kind of mistake it for the theatrical cut, and I have to start talking to people and be all like, "Wait, you mean you didn't see that scene?"
Right. I gotta ask though. Okay, I need to ask. Did it change your perception of the film? Did it change the way you appreciated it? Did it make it deeper? Did it make it more interesting? How did it hit you?
I felt like it enriched the characters significantly. Because there are so many characters in that movie. Now, the most important ones, of course, would have to be like, the mom, Kate Hudson's character, Patrick Fugit, and everybody else, and Billy Crup's character, the guitarist, and maybe Jason Lee, the vocalist. Like those are
right.
Like, that's already I just named 5 people already, and I'm already implying that there's so many other characters. So there's only so much room to develop each character. And I think in the theatrical cut, Cameron Crowe acquits himself fairly well in balancing that. But in the Untitled cut, he gives more room to the internal conflicts of the band, which in turn help facilitate our understanding of how they treat Kate Hudson's character poorly, which also informs the way she interacts with. Like it's all positive dominoes, in my opinion.
Okay.
You should watch it if you haven't watched it yourself.
I have never seen the Untitled Cut, honestly, because I'm in love with the theatrical one, so I never saw a reason to seek out the extended one.
Yeah, it's funny. You're always chiding. We're always joking with each other on this show about physical and digital, and I gotta tell you, I can lend you a copy.
But the thing is, like, there are films like The Godfather or Apocalypse Now that they have had many, many cuts over the years, whether it's because they were shown on TV and needed to be padded out, like what we said earlier, to sell more ads, or sometimes they just added in entire subplots that they'd cut out for special video releases, or sometimes Francis Ford Coppola just wanted to go back and tinker again with Apocalypse Now.
Yeah. I feel like
I honestly don't feel, I just don't feel that any of those made the films any richer.
Yeah.
It was fun to see extended footage. It was a novelty, but they didn't do anything to change my original opinions or my opinions of the original versions, which I consider to be superior in all honesty, because everything that comes after that is superfluous. One of the few film series that I actually enjoyed with the additions, even if I completely acknowledge that they're absolutely superfluous, would be Lord of the Rings.
Yeah.
You know, like Fellowship of the Ring got 27 minutes added when it hit the extended cut. And it was funny because, you know, they'd come out with a movie. A few months later, they'd have the home video. And then right before or just when the sequel came out, they'd release the extended cut. And they did this 3 years in a row.
Yeah.
And with the first one, the Fellowship of the Ring, they added 27 minutes. With the Two Towers, they added 49 minutes, 42 minutes. And then with the Return of the King, they just went all in. They added an hour. Okay. So, but the thing is, those, even if you know that everything that's added isn't entirely necessary, except for one or two bits, it doesn't stick out like a sore thumb.
Yeah.
Okay. You're grateful to be spending more time in this universe with these characters, going on these adventures. It doesn't, it's a little bit self-indulgent. Yes, it is. Absolutely. But it's not obnoxious. Does that make sense?
Yeah. No. Okay. You know, I have three things to say to the stuff you said earlier. Okay. Number one, I think what helps the Lord of the Rings. First of all, one of the things that makes, I think, Almost Famous and Lord of the Rings possible, because these are newer movies. These movies came out around 1999 to 2003, okay? And this is at the height of DVD. And I think the idea of the extended cut of a movie was driven in large part by the DVD market and the notion of trying to sell premium editions of these things, you know? So you could pay like a few bucks, $15 for the regular edition of, say, you know, Spider-Man, or you would spend like $30 for a 2-disc edition with all the fancy features. And, you know, that's for a slightly commercial superhero movie that tends to have its story or its ideas sort of locked down tightly. But in the case of more so-called, you know, I'm reluctant to say so-called auteur projects, there is definitely an appeal to say, oh, you know, we're going to release this DVD as a 4-disc edition or a 3-disc edition, and we're going to give you like a big cut. So a big, you know, massive like director's cut to go along with the theatrical cut. So that definitely helped. And I think also what helps with that is that knowing that a DVD is there, the director can sort of actively plan about that instead of being all like, I have to rush the theatrical cut and sort of figure out what my definitive cut is later. And that's, I think, in sharp contrast to your complaints about Apocalypse Now and other movies, is that the value of their cuts has been sort of undermined by how often they have done it. You know what I mean? Like, so for anybody who's a fan of Apocalypse Now or a fan of even Blade Runner,
The Godfather,
up until the final cut came out, there is, for many people, no quote-unquote definitive edition. You know what I mean? Like, when you have 8 different cuts of a movie, people, you know, it's impossible to say which one is like the definitive version.
Okay, that one, I'm gonna go with Ridley Scott. I think I like the final cut.
Yeah.
Because, you know, he didn't get to finish entirely, right? He didn't get to finish his original.
Yeah.
And all the others were just mishmashes of other people as trying to assemble his intent or trying to do something for the European market or, you know, for home video and all that. And he didn't actually get to really put his stamp on the thing until, what was it, 2006? When he did the final cut, 2005?
I think it was 2007. Yeah.
So in that case, to be perfectly honest, I am happy for Zack Snyder that he's finally going to get to show the world what the hell he had in mind all these years. It'll finally put to rest, if nothing else, for better or worse, it'll put to rest all the conspiracy theories regarding the actual content of his Snyder Cut.
That is fair.
And whether or not I'm going to enjoy it, I am actually looking forward to seeing it. I'm not kidding. I really am.
Yeah, I mean, this is a real put up or shut up moment. Not to be harsh or say like, oh man, you got to put up at me. But, you know, it's a put up or shut up moment. It's like all the conspiracy theories, like you said, all the conspiracy theories, we can be all like, okay, now he's had a chance to fix it or finish it. You know, now the ambiguity goes away.
Because, you know, it also adds to the whole notion that that Joss Whedon essentially destroyed the integrity of that original intent. Because Joss Whedon, as we know, was brought in. He was the director of the first 2 Avengers movies. He was the creator of Buffy the Vampire Slayer, Firefly, Serenity, Dollhouse. He already had a track record of writing. He had a track record of doing ensemble shows, ensemble productions with snappy dialogue, plot twists, and all that sort of thing. So he was brought in after Snyder exited the project. Whether that was willingly or unwillingly is not up for discussion at this point. I think it's not relevant. But for whatever reason, Snyder left the project, and Joss Whedon was brought in. And depending who you ask, he either reshot or rewrote or added to between 10% and 60% of what we actually saw. So if Snyder's gonna get a chance finally to show the world what he wanted us to see 2 years ago, and Warner Brothers is willing to put their full might behind it, then I am willing to sit down for a couple of hours and see it. I don't know if it's gonna be any good, but yeah, I think I'm gonna give it a chance, honestly. I mean, I don't know how much of Warner Brothers' green light in this case came from the fact that the hashtag actually had an impact, release the Snyder Cut, or the fact that there are pretty much no active productions happening right now. And this is something they had sitting around in their vault. So why the hell not? Let's just do post-production work on this.
Yeah. No, I think you're
that we already own.
Because addendum, as we said already, this is coming out on HBO Max, and if you're going to launch if you're going to launch a video on demand streaming platform like Netflix or CBS All Access or whatever, or Disney Plus, you got to have some must-see content that is exclusive to the platform. And I've been led to understand that was one of the tentpole pieces of content that was going to launch with HBO Max was the Friends reunion special, the one that bring Ross, Rachel, and the gang together, to talk about like the Friends legacy or some stuff. Now, there was a lot of wrangling to get those schedules to align, and it was going to push through, but then the coronavirus pandemic threw a wrench into that. So
absolutely,
So I'm not casting any like negative aspersions necessarily on it. I'm just saying is they don't have Friends special, so it's like, you know what? Why not? Let's bring the Snyder Cut out, to launch with HBO Max.
Right, because it's going to please a certain segment of the fan base. Yeah. It's going to make something to get people curious. It'll bring in even the non-fans. Yeah. And it's something that nobody else could possibly have.
Yeah.
And right now, you're right. You're absolutely right. Having unique content is something that's absolutely imperative. But on top of that, in addition to having unique content, you also need to have a variety of content. And that is what's kicking Disney Plus in the butt right now. Mm-mm. Because, in trying to make everything streamlined and family friendly, a lot of people realize that if you don't have kids that need to be distracted by this, then it's okay to cancel your subscription after watching The Mandalorian. Yeah. That's why, as much as people predicted the downfall of Netflix, as every major studio started taking back their toys, Netflix now is the big winner in this quarantine because people are watching more streaming material than ever. And Netflix is the only one that's got the variety to keep them engaged.
Yeah. I mean, you could watch, Amazon Prime or whatever, but, Netflix is still, king of exclusive and international content, more importantly, which I think Amazon does not hold much stock in.
And it has that sweet spot of, being an adjective just by virtue of its brand name.
It's true.
What are you going to, right? What are you doing? Amazoning. No, nobody's doing that. Yeah. Nobody's Amazoning and chilling.
Priming.
Even fewer are Amazon priming and chilling.
Prime and chill. Autobots roll out. No, Autobots chill out.
So when Justice League comes out next year, if it's going to be a film or a mini-series event, we should definitely check back and look in on it.
Yeah. Watch party, baby.
Hopefully the quarantine will be done by then, but no promises. Oh God, that's depressing.
I think that is an episode.
Absolutely, that was fun. We are going to release this, and y'all are going to listen to it. And at some point, we will replace it with a version that's 10 minutes longer, and that's what you're going to have to live with.
And sometimes you'll get alternating cuts where I speak first or Misha speaks first.
Right, and then you all can argue about who went first. But we're only giving you 12 parsecs to do it. Oh wait, what?
What?
Okay, that's been 3 Point Landing. Thank you for listening to us straight from quarantine. We are still Misha.
And I'm Matthew.
Let us know what you think of Zack Snyder, release the Snyder Cut, and Justice League in the comments. Follow us on Facebook. And what did I do now? Why? What? What's wrong? We were finally doing an outro. God damn it.
Don't forget to message us on facebook.com/toomuchgaming. Send us all your questions, your rants, your
this isn't too much
opinions
gaming!
About Director's Cut. We want to build up a question bucket episode, so we can talk about all your thoughts about pop culture in this quarantine.
Oi! This wasn't too much gaming, fool!
Oh, did I say too much gaming? There's my 3 Point Landing. Too much gaming. I'm fired.
Why can't we ever open or end these things properly? Okay, wait.
I'm gonna give it a shot.
Okay, so yeah.
And that has been another episode of 3 Point Landing, coming to you straight from the quarantine. I'm Matthew.
I'm Misha.
And good night.
Yeah, that was easier, wasn't it?
Yeah.
Follow us on Facebook and let us know in the comments what you think about the upcoming Justice League. Next time, we're going to talk about skin diving.
What? This episode of 3 Point Landing was produced, recorded, and distributed under quarantine by Big Baby Studios. Follow us on Facebook at 3 Point Landing PH.